Off the coast of Somalia, 31 speedboats each loaded with heavily armed pirates raced across the waves. On board, over 250 attackers equipped with rocket-propelled grenades, heavy machine guns, and brutal resolve. Their target, a seemingly ordinary U.S. supply ship, quietly transporting vital equipment to a nearby American aircraft carrier. But this wasn't just any shipment, it was the lifeblood of the carrier strike group, and the pirates were about to make the deadliest mistake of their lives. They approached with chilling coordination, striking with speed and ferocity. In mere minutes, they had nearly seized control of the ship. Gunfire echoed across the steel decks, smoke rising into the early morning sky. But what the pirates didn't know was that they had just declared war on the United States military. And war was coming for them fast. Suddenly, the skies roared. 10 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters thundered overhead, loaded with over 300 elite U.S. Special Operations troops armed with cutting-edge weapons. In formation behind them flew 5F, A-18 Super Hornets, and 20 MQ-5 Stingray drones, all laser-locked onto a single target. The pirate base, America wasn't sending a warning. It was delivering steel, fire, and fury. There would be no negotiations, no surrender, no mercy. Because when you hijack a ship flying the American flag, you don't just provoke a crew, you awaken the might of the U.S. military. Let's rewind. Here's how it began. 6:12 a.m., July 5, 2025, a U.S. Navy logistics ship disguised as a civilian freighter quietly moved through pirate-infested waters off the Somali coast. Its mission: deliver fuel and highly classified explosive compounds to power F-35 jets and long-range cruise missiles aboard a nearby aircraft carrier. On board were just 10 lightly armed U.S. sailors, guardians of what was arguably the most critical piece of logistics in the U.S. Navy's operational theater. Suddenly, the comm shattered. Radar and spotters picked up 31 high-speed boats charging across the horizon at over 50 knots. They looked like a swarm, fast, aggressive, coordinated. Each vessel carried 8 battle-hardened pirates, veterans of years of maritime raids and insurgent combat. This wasn't some ragtag robbery. This was a tactical assault. The attackers, divided into 3 units, the first used RPGs and mounted weapons to suppress the American defense, forcing the crew to take cover. A second team flanked the ship, exploiting blind spots and scaling the hull with grappling hooks. Chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out as American sailors returned fire from behind steel containers. 2 pirates dropped, but it wasn't enough. Within for minutes, the ship was lost. 5 Americans were dead, 3 were gravely wounded. The pirates breached the bridge, took command, and zip-tied the surviving crew with tow lines, forcing them to lie face down at gunpoint. But just before being overpowered, the ship's captain himself, a former Navy lieutenant, activated a silent distress beacon. It pinged the signal directly to the closest U.S. carrier strike group just under 200 kilometers away. The pirates had no clue. They believed they'd taken just another hostage ship to ransom. They were celebrating, oblivious to the hornets' nest they had just kicked, because what they had captured wasn't just a supply ship. It was a mobile artery for U.S. firepower. Inside the Pentagon, alarms were already flashing red. The cargo wasn't just valuable, it was mission critical: jet fuel, missile stabilizers, thermal ignition compounds, encrypted avionics. All components that enabled the F-35 Lightning to fly, strike, and survive. Losing that cargo wasn't just a tactical loss, it was a breach in the U.S. global strike network. Rear Admiral Sloan stepped to the podium in the carrier's war room, his face stone cold. His message was simple: no one hijacks a U.S. naval asset and walks away. No one disrupts our supply lines without punishment. The clock was ticking. The pirates were steering the captured ship toward a coastal enclave, a pirate stronghold, known to intelligence agencies as a black market haven. Less than 10 nautical miles remained. If they reached it, the risk of those classified materials falling into the wrong hands, hostile states, terror groups, weapons dealers would explode. Exponentially, there would be no waiting. No chance for diplomatic pressure, just overwhelming force. The U.S. response was already airborne. What looked to the world like a rusted old freighter was, in reality, a vessel so critical that its loss could paralyze carrier operations across the region. Officially designated Logistics Vessel 72 Delta, it carried enough fuel and specialized weapon-grade compounds to sustain air superiority for weeks. Without it, F-35 sorties would be grounded, missile silos would sit idle, and strategic dominance would erode. By seizing it, the pirates had done more than commit a crime. They had triggered a classified response protocol involving rapid deployment of sea, air, and cyber assets. Pentagon analysts feared the worst. If the pirates uploaded or reverse-engineered the encrypted systems on board, global adversaries could gain access to avionics blueprints and missile guidance software. The consequences wouldn't stay confined to the Indian Ocean, they'd ripple across the globe. The operation to recover the ship was now underway, and what followed would become a textbook case in asymmetric response, shock doctrine, and full-spectrum dominance. For years, international strikes had become all too common. The U.S. response this time had to be immediate, overwhelming, and absolute, not just to recover the captured vessel, but to send a global message. If you threaten America's supply lines, you face the full might of the United States. Don't go anywhere. What you're about to witness is one of the fastest and most precise hostage rescue operations in U.S. military history. At 6:15 a.m., just 3 minutes after pirates overran the American supply ship, a classified emergency signal lit up the operation screen aboard USS Liberty. The lead carrier of the strike group positioned 128 miles southwest within 30 seconds. A red alert code Priority 1, hostile capture of high-value naval asset, was transmitted across 3 U.S. Navy warships and to airborne command centers. There was no time for diplomacy. Rear Admiral Peter Sloan gave the order without hesitation: initiate Operation Thundernet. We go now. Operation Thundernet begins. The response was swift and surgical. Aboard the USS Liberty, 10 MH-60 Hawk helicopters were rolled out onto the flight deck, each packed with 30 fully armed Navy SEALs and Marine Raiders. A total of 300 elite troops, handpicked for shipboarding and hostage rescue operations, were now airborne. Simultaneously, 5 F/A-18 Super Hornets were armed with precision-guided bombs and GAU-7A miniguns capable of unleashing thousands of rounds per minute. Below deck, flight crews deployed 20 MQ-5 Stingray drones, the latest in AI-powered reconnaissance and strike technology. Each drone carried dual microbomb bays, advanced thermal tracking systems, and encrypted real-time data links to the tactical operations hub. Within 9 minutes of the distress signal, the skies over the Indian Ocean roared to life. 3 waves of fury, 3 coordinated waves were launched. First wave, UAVs. The MQ-5 Stingrays flew ahead, scanning for the hijacked vessel and any escort craft. Second wave, Super Hornets. These jets flew wide, preparing to suppress enemy fire with overwhelming aerial firepower. Third wave, Seahawks. Flying low across the sea surface, the helicopters hugged radar shadow zones to stay undetected. Each flight group was tracked in real time by satellites and E-D Hawkeye early warning aircraft, ensuring complete airspace dominance. Back on the carrier, Admiral Sloan watched the digital map. The hijacked American ship was now only 8 nautical miles from a known pirate compound. If the pirates reached land, the operation would escalate into urban warfare, exponentially increasing the risk to hostages. There was no margin for delay, no room for failure. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a statement, and America was about to make it with overwhelming force and surgical precision. Proud to be American, hit like and subscribe to stay with us. The sky changes at 7:01 a.m. With the hijacked vessel drifting into visual range of the Somali coastline, the sky above it suddenly shifted. From the east, a formation of MQ-5 Stingray drones appeared, maintaining complete radio silence. They skimmed low over the ocean, then broke formation into attack positions. The lead drone quickly identified for pirate escort boats flanking the hijacked vessel. Within seconds, all targets were locked. Then came the first wave of fire. Precision microbombs rained down from the drones, detonating with pinpoint accuracy. The ocean erupted into towering columns of water and flame. All four escort boats were vaporized in under 12 seconds. Air superiority strikes at that moment. 2F A-18 Super Hornets screamed in from high altitude, launching coordinated strafing runs down the ship's port side. Miniguns ripped through the upper decks, tearing apart sandbagged gun positions and pirate firing nests. Several RPGs were destroyed mid-launch before they could even be fired. Then, like shadows rising from the sea, 10 MH-60 Seahawks appeared from the west, hovering inches above the waterline. Ropes dropped, SEALs and Marine Raiders descended onto the ship's deck in perfect synchronicity. Boarding the pirates never stood a chance. From bow to stern, the American operators moved with mechanical precision. Room by room, deck by deck, the vessel was systematically cleared. One fire team stormed the bridge. The pirates were neutralized before they could raise their weapons. Another team breached the engine room, eliminating hostiles using airstrike and boarding assault. Flashbangs followed by suppressed fire. The hostages, bound and blooded, were swiftly located and brought to the central deck. Medic stabilized the wounded while SEALs established a tight perimeter defense. Mission accomplished almost in under 8 minutes. Every pirate on board was either killed or captured. Not a single American hostage was lost. But the mission wasn't over. Over encrypted radio comms, real-time drone footage revealed a pirate stronghold just 7 nautical miles inland. A fortified compound featuring vehicle bays, fuel depots, and radar installations. It had operated as a black market weapons and logistics hub for nearly a decade. That ends today. Admiral Sloan didn't hesitate. Switch targets, bring it. Down within minutes. For more, F-A-18 Super Hornets roared inland. Their payloads, GBU-30 to JD AIM-MIS. Their targets, critical infrastructure within the pirate compound. In a single precise pass, they flattened the main headquarters. Secondary explosions followed instantly. Fuel caches ignited. Munitions depots erupted into towering fireballs, and the coastline lit up like a war zone. Then came the final blow from above. A Reaper drone locked onto the enemy command tower and released a single Hellfire missile. The blast was visible for miles. By 7:29 a.m., the base was no longer operational. It no longer existed. Over 500 pirates were confirmed dead, with dozens more either captured or buried beneath the rubble. The message could not have been clearer. You don't hijack an American warship, and you never, ever touch a U.S. lifeline at sea. For years, that pirate compound had stood undisturbed, hidden along the Somali coast, shielded by treacherous terrain and a web of corruption. It was more than a hideout. It was their fortress, their trading post, their so-called untouchable sanctuary. By 7:30 a.m., it was reduced to rubble. Once the supply ship was secured, the U.S. Navy unleashed its full might on the pirate base. Real-time UAV surveillance fed precise GPS coordinates to a secondary strike group circling inland. The first wave, F-A-18 Super Hornets flying in tight combat box formations. At just 500 feet altitude, they dropped GBU-3 to JD AIM-MIS laser-guided bombs that hit with pinpoint accuracy. The command center disintegrated on impact. Concrete walls buckled. Communications towers snapped like twigs. Fire streaked skyward. Next, MQ-9 Reaper drones swept into the kill zone, each armed with Hellfire missiles and equipped with thermal imaging optics. They hunted hidden bunkers and underground stockpiles. One missile struck a concealed weapons cache, triggering a chain of devastating secondary detonations. Half the compound was consumed in flames. The pirates scrambled to return fire, but it was hopeless. Their anti-air defenses were primitive, outdated, and overwhelmed before they could even achieve target lock. The air superiority was absolute, then came the ground assault. Two CH-53 helicopters descended into the smoke. From their Ramsport Marine Raiders elite warfighters trained for fast, decisive engagement, they launched a coordinated sweep. Off the charred perimeter, drone feeds and infrared goggles guided their every move as they flushed out resistance hiding in alleys, tunnels, and makeshift bunkers. No warning shots, no negotiations, over 500 pirates were neutralized in under 20 minutes. Those too injured to flee were taken alive zip-tied, blindfolded, and airlifted out for interrogation. By 8 a.m., the once formidable pirate stronghold had become a cratered graveyard. The skyline once dotted with towers and watch posts was now reduced to columns of smoke and twisted metal. And the world had watched it all unfold in real time. To every pirate, warlord, or rogue nation watching from afar, the warning was unmistakable: touch the United States of America at sea and prepare to disappear from the map. But this operation was about more than a rescue, it was a strategic demonstration. In a world increasingly defined by asymmetric warfare, piracy, and gray zone conflict, the US Navy delivered a brutal reminder: logistics is not weakness, it's power. That seemingly unremarkable supply ship, often overlooked and lightly guarded, turned out to be the beating heart of an entire carrier group's offensive capability. And when that lifeline was threatened, the United States didn't hesitate. It retaliated with the full spectrum of modern warfare: real-time surveillance, air superiority, special operations forces, and surgical strikes. The pirates believed they could strike fast, vanish into coastal hideouts, and negotiate from a position of fear. Instead, they encountered the unrelenting force of a global superpower. For American military strategists, this mission was more than payback, it was a masterclass in operational readiness. The world's oceans remain contested, and America's global influence is only as strong as its ability to defend the lifelines that sustain